A reoccurring theme in the controlled media when the results of elections go against the financial interests of the corporate owners that are now mostly wedded bizarrely to the social goals of the extreme far left, for now, we can now expect to see the same vocabulary and the same talking points whether the election was in Brasilia, Budapest, Warsaw, or Washington. Somewhere in the text you will find words like fear, anger, hate, lies, somewhere in there blaming social media and an assortment of prepackaged, ready-made headlines that basically demonstrate that journalists in the controlled media, either through being oblivious to the reality around them or taking their marching orders from their corporate management, demonstrate time and time again that they haven't learned anything. It is the NPC meme taken to its logical conclusion. And far be it from me to interrupt the controlled media as they continue to throw wood on the pyre of what is left of their credibility. As non-conventional politicians continue to gain power, it is clear that the rapid demographic shift in the nation is creating sizable blocks of voters that want more state handouts, more government subsidies, more government. Enter Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a woman of what appears to be a singular wit that did not meet a socialist or Marxist idea she didn't like. However, on the other side, there are Americans of all stripes as well that have come to realize that the consensus of the political center that is extolled by the controlled media has accepted as conventional wisdom ideas that are, in reality, quite extreme. For all intents and purposes, the United States has lost control of its southern border. Sanctuary cities have sprung up around the country and sending home to their native country those that have broken the law of the United States and have entered the country illegally is now considered hateful. Bringing up the legality, cost, or social consequences, including on existing public infrastructure like hospitals and schools, that illegal immigration has upon communities is met with howls and squeals of racism. There is no ability to even speak calmly on the matter. And those that are tasked with enforcing the laws and the borders are not only vilified by immigrant rights groups, but by the controlled media. The entire argument is feels versus reals, and nobody even wants a teaspoon taste of reality. Democracy is not about sides, it's about competition with rules. And the now broken consensus was, if your side lost, you licked your wounds, bided your time, and tried to win the next time around. The problem is the current far left, whose extremist message is amplified by the controlled media, no longer believes rules matter. If their side loses, there will be endless anarchy and refusal to accept the democratic outcome. Look to the election in 2016, for example, to the point that they want to destroy the rules if they perceive their side as losing. There is no democracy without proper rules. Every group can't and won't be represented equally. It's not possible. Thus, the belief that it's only democracy when the far left extremists win, and it's only free speech when it reflects the values and opinions of the far left. And this is not only helped by the controlled media, but also in this regard by academia as well as Silicon Valley. The left controls academia, the media, Hollywood, and most importantly, Silicon Valley, and are very much about suppressing any speech that goes against the political narrative they attempt to spin. And this consortium of oppression is very much more dangerous to democracy and individual rights for the common person than the government will ever be. Currently, the left is absolutely and disgustingly censorious when it comes to political speech that they do not agree with, and believe that it is only free speech when it reflects their values. Look at the massive censorship by tech monopolies post Hillary Clinton's disastrous defeat in 2016, as well as the massive deplatforming in the run-up to the November midterms. Censorship of political ideas must never be accepted, no matter how much money is thrown at it. The belief of moving industry to China and hollowing out the Rust Belt would not create political disruption is ludicrous on its surface. Both parties, however, have paved the way for untold amounts of wealth to be redistributed to China, and in doing so have destroyed American industry and given the Chinese immense systems of pressure over the country that they could never have dreamed of having even a few short decades ago. And this should not be a partisan position for anyone. However, currently the controlled media is continually attacking Donald Trump for being the first president in generations that is looking for trade agreements that take American interests into account. Now think about that. Social issues like those that pertain to the transgender question, for example, have become so extreme and so lopsided, a person can now join the US military not to serve his or her country, but to receive transgender reassignment surgery. To object in any way to this as a misallocation of resources and investment into retainable personnel for the military is again met with howls of the professionally offended, who in most respects are in fact the most intolerant people of all. And for the more informed, or even those that follow the few honest politicians left in the US like Ron Paul and his son Rand, the continual abuse of the money supply, the Federal Reserve, the gross parasitical nature of defense contractors, and the stranglehold of lobby groups, as well as the money in the political system. All of these and more are very extremist positions to hold, but have somehow become the acceptable tenets of so-called pragmatic political centrism. In any country where you have the breakdown of the social contract and an inability to find consensus, the center will dissolve and polarization will increase. You can see this going on to a greater or lesser degree in Italy, Germany, Austria, Hungary, the Philippines, Turkey, Mexico, Brazil, and in America with Donald Trump. This is why you are seeing parties like the SPD in Germany, Labour in the UK, the Liberals in Canada, and the Democratic Party in the US doing everything they can to rapidly import a new voting bloc that will be dependent upon them and their form of tax and spend government. In the increasingly heterogeneous America with so many different interests and competing groups, tensions are not only increasing and inevitable, but they can only grow. Classical and archaic liberalism, as well as Republican-style governance structures, are not compatible with the hyper-diversity of interests now attempting to live in the same space in the United States. It's that simple. Many comment on the growing economic imbalance as well as the growing chasm between the classes, with the middle again all but disintegrating. This also is giving rise to extremism on both sides. However, the extremism on the left is unironically supported by massive tech conglomerates as they censor the left's political rivals while at the same time undermining the left's economic position via the globalism of labor. These conditions will inevitably bring about a more fragile peace within society, but what's more, once again, show the fragility of democratic institutions as these natural responses to a disharmonious society play out. This is the road we walk as a society, and the forks in the road ahead will decide where society will traverse and to what destination. And given the heterogeneous nature of the United States, now more than ever defending the center is about promoting pragmatism in a fractured society that is slowly moving ever more apart to embrace the radical ideologies of the extremes. Long-term fixes are needed. Violent extremism is not. And this is why the First Amendment is so important in a diverse and disharmonious society, as diversity of thought cannot be silenced by large tech firms, as it will only find outlets that are much less desirable and to the detriment of all. If not, America will continue its slide, and the bitter divisions between communities, rock-bottom race and gender relations, and militarized police force can only increase. Politics shape culture, and somehow and in some way, the US needs to move away from the cliff of socialism that the Democratic Party is now trying to push it toward. And positive signs are everywhere, and none more so than the increasing inability of the controlled media to set the political and the social narrative of the country. The United States needs to recreate a new group identity around freedom, democracy, self-sufficiency, and real equality. If it can do this, anything is possible. If being the operative word.